Alright, today we're going to try one of our first flipped classroom videos on section 3 today on early European explorers. We'll get the PowerPoint going here quick. This will be a little bit different than what you're used to, a little different, like I said, but for the most part, a lot of our notes are going to be the same. The one thing that I would request that you do is that you continue to hit pause and take notes and actually listen to what I say, not just take down the notes and flip to the next slides, because then you'll miss out on a lot of our lecture. But today, like I said, we're talking about early European explorers. This is section 3. I'm going to read you one European story first before we get going here. So the sailors that were seeking a route to Asia depended on the skill of their navigator. A navigator, by definition, plans the course of a ship by using instruments to find its position. In the 1400s, Portugal had a famous prince called Henry the Navigator, yet Henry wasn't even a navigator. He never sailed on any of the ships trying to find Asia, so how did he earn the name? Well, Henry lived in Sagres on the southwestern tip of Portugal, and it was a site that overlooked the Atlantic Ocean. He invited astronomers, mathematicians, mapmakers, and navigators to Sagres, and there he began a school of navigation. Henry decided to organize and pay for sailing expeditions to explore the Atlantic and the west coast of Africa. He was hoping to find African gold, to learn more about geography, and most importantly at the time, he wanted to spread Christianity. His ships traveled farther down the African coast than Europeans had ever gone. Because Henry sponsored the voyages, the English named him the Navigator. Those voyages began Europe's age of discovery, and that navigation and discovery eventually led the Europeans to the Americas. So today you should be able to, by the time we're done, be able to describe the Portuguese water route to Asia. You should be able to explain why Spain's rulers financed Columbus's voyage of discovery. You should be able to describe Columbus's first voyage, and you should also be able to evaluate the geographic knowledge Columbus brought back from his voyages. Moving on. Now, under Prince Henry, the Portuguese developed an improved ship called the caravel. The caravel had triangular sails as well as square sails. The square sails carried the ship forward when the wind was at its back, and the triangular sails allowed the caravel to sail into the wind. The caravel was better than other European ships of the time, the caravel was better than other European ships of the time, as this type of sailing was new. So you can see up in the picture, right up here, these are the square sails for the wind at their back, and here you can see the triangular sails, which would work with the wind going in. It would work when they went into the wind. Now, in January of 1488, the Portuguese explorer Bartolomeu Dias reached the southern tip of Africa. After sailing around it, he returned to Portugal at the urging of his crew. Portugal's king named the tip the Cape of Good Hope because he hoped they had found a new route to Asia. 10 years later, another Portuguese explorer, Vasco da Gama, followed Dias's route around the Cape, and he continued north along the eastern coast of Africa, and then he sailed east across the Indian Ocean to India. At last, someone had found an all-water route from Europe to Asia. That route meant that the Portuguese could now trade with Asia without dealing with the Muslims or Italians. Portugal took control of the valuable spice trade, and the merchants of Lisbon, Portugal, the capital of Portugal, grew very rich. Spain and other European rivals wanted to take part in this profitable trade, and they began to look for their own water routes to Asia. So Dias got all the way down to here, to the Cape of Good Hope, and then he ended up traveling back to Lisbon, Portugal. When Da Gama went, he got all the way down. He went up the east coast. He got all the way to Calicut, India, and then he comes back with very valuable spices in tow. Now, by the time of Da Gama's voyage, there was an Italian sailor named Christopher Columbus that thought he knew a faster way to reach Asia. Europeans had known for centuries that the earth was round, so Columbus decided that instead of sailing around Africa and then east, he would sail west across the Atlantic. He calculated that it would be a short journey. This is one of Columbus's first failings. Columbus made very many mistakes, though. First, he relied on the writings of two people, Marco Polo and a geographer named Paolo Toscanelli, who were very wrong about the size of Asia. They claimed that Asia stretched farther from west to east than it really did. Second, Columbus underestimated the distance around the globe. He thought the Earth was only about 2/3 as large as it actually was, so he thought it was about 67% of what the size actually was for the Earth. Because of Paolo and Toscanelli because of Polo and Toscanelli, Columbus thought that Asia took up most of that distance. Therefore, he believed that the Atlantic Ocean would be pretty small, and he thought then the voyage west to Asia would be short. So in 1483, Columbus asked the King of Portugal to finance a voyage across the Atlantic. The king's advisors opposed the plan, and they argued that Columbus had miscalculated the distance to Asia. They also reminded the king of the progress that Portuguese explorers had made sailing down the coast of Africa looking for a route to Asia. So the advisors persuaded the king not to finance the voyage. So in 1486, Columbus then turns to Portugal's rival, Spain. Now this map here might look kind of funny, but this is what they thought the earth looked like at the time. So you're seeing the tip of Africa and Asia up here, but they've got things up here like Brazil. And then over here, Sapongo is what they think is Japan. So like they thought that this was a very short trip across when they couldn't have been more wrong. Now Spain's rulers, King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella, who you see here on the right, they liked Columbus's plan because they wanted a share of the rich Asian trade. As a strong Catholic, the Queen also welcomed a chance to spread Christianity, but there were also reasons not to support Columbus. First, there was a royal council in Spain that had doubts about his calculations, just like Portugal had had, and they advised Ferdinand and Isabella not to finance him. Second, the Spanish monarchs were in the middle of a costly war to drive the Muslims out of Spain. And third, Columbus was asking a very large amount of money for his services. So the years of waiting made Columbus very determined to make money off of his explorations. As a reward for his time and effort, he required the high title Admiral of the Ocean Sea, and a percentage of any riches be brought from Asia. He also expected to be made the ruler of the lands he found. So he was very arrogant, and he really wanted notoriety out of this. So finally, in January of 1492, the Spanish conquered the last Muslim stronghold in Spain. The Spanish monarchs could now afford to finance Columbus, but still had doubts in him. After leaving for home, Columbus was gathered by Ferdinand and Isabella before he set sail, and he and the rulers had finally reached an agreement. Preparing to set sail, Columbus assembled his vessels, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, and they took off from the port of Palos de la Frontera in southern Spain. So at first, Columbus had trouble finding crew members, but then a local respected ship owner agreed to captain the Pinta. And like dominoes, all other crew members fell into place. About 90 men loaded the ships with enough food for 1 year, cases of fresh water, wood for burning, and other necessities that they would need. The trio of ships left the harbor on August 3rd, 1492, and by today's standards, the ships were very small. The largest, the Santa Maria, was only 100 feet long and it carried 39 people. Their voyage took them from Spain southwest toward the Canary Islands off the coast of Africa, and from there, he relied on trade winds that blew toward the west to speed his ships across the ocean. Once aboard ship, Columbus kept a log or a record of each day's sailing, and he actually kept 2 logs. One was truthful, and the other one was kind of a lie that he showed his crew. The truthful log was only seen by Columbus. We made 15 leagues this day, and I decided to report less than those actually traveled, so in case the voyage were long, the men would not be frightened and lose courage. That's an actual quote from Columbus. So he purposely lied so that his men wouldn't get discouraged with the trip. But by October 10th, the men had lost both courage and confidence in their leader, and they had been at sea for almost 10 weeks and had not seen land for over a month. Afraid that they would starve if the trip went on longer, they talked of returning home. So to avoid a mutiny, Columbus and the crew struck a deal. The men agreed to sail on for 3 more days, and Columbus promised to turn back if they had not sighted land by then. 2 days later, in the early morning hours of October 12th, a sailor on the Pinta called out, "Land, land." So on this map right here, you can see Columbus's trip, where they went across from the Canary Islands right here, westward across the trade winds where they hit our Atlantic islands. So like I said, by October he started to lose hope. His men did. They wanted to go home. They agreed to sail for 3 more days, and 2 days later they shouted "Tierra, tierra," which meant land, land. So Columbus literally came within 24 hours of never finding the New World, which is incredible. Now eventually, yes, it would have been found, but it would have taken longer. So by noon, the ships had landed on a small island in the Caribbean, And he thought he was in the Indies of Southeast Asia where he would find spices, but he actually found much more. The islanders who greeted him were known as Tainos, and he mistook them for Indians or natives of India. So that's why we get the West Indies, and why we call Native Americans or natives of any nationality, we call them Indians instead of natives. But Columbus named his island San Salvador, and after placing down the royal banner and flags, he ordered his crew to bear witness that I was taking possession of this island for the king and queen. Eager to reach the rich country of Japan he believed was close, he left the island and he took some Taino with him as tour guides. Over the next few months, he island hopped across many small Caribbean islands. So over the next 3 months, he island hopped, and eventually he reached the island that he named Hispaniola. Today we call it Hispaniola, which is the island that contains the Dominican Republic and Haiti. On that island, Columbus and his men found some gold and precious objects such as pearls. This convinced Columbus that he had reached Asia. He was a little off. He thought it would be best to return to Spain and bring back great news. He left 39 of his men on Hispaniola. Before Columbus even got off the island, his men had made the Tainos pretty mad because they stole from the Tainos and committed violence against them. And by the time Columbus returned 10 months later, the Taino actually killed all of Columbus's men. So in January of 1493, he sailed back to Spain, strongly believing that he'd found a new water route to Asia. He wrote to the king and queen, and the Spanish rulers called him to the royal court to report on his voyage. Neither Columbus nor the king and queen suspected that he had landed near continents entirely unknown to the modern world. So Columbus made 3 more voyages to the Americas, but never brought back the treasures he had promised Spain's rulers. He also failed to meet Queen Isabella's other goal of bringing Christianity to new people. When she learned that Columbus and his men mistreated and enslaved the people of Hispaniola, Queen Isabella got very upset. After the 4th and final voyage, Spain refused to give Columbus any more help. He ended up dying in 1506, fully believing he had reached Asia. He passed away a very bitter man, thinking he did not receive the glory and recognition he deserved. In time, the geographic knowledge Columbus brought back challenged European views of the world. People soon figured that Columbus had reached continents previously unknown. Europeans were more eager than ever to see if these lands could make them rich. They had no idea what they were about to stumble upon. For hundreds of years, Europeans had seen the oceans as barriers to exploration, but with one trip, Columbus changed all of it. The Atlantic became a bridge to the New World that connected Europe, Africa, and Asia. And that concludes our first lesson.